Welcome to SaintsFootballTalk.com channel. I am your host, Ellias J Williams, also known as EJW. And we're going to do a bit of a reaction video on a segment from Underhill and Ross Jackson. They're going to give us some insights, give us a little bit of a discussion on the Saints, Cardinals, do some predictions, breakdowns. And so let's jump right in and see what we got here.
Welcome back. It is now time for some tempo with my guy, Ross Jackson. Season's here, man. Like, big deal. Kellen Moore going to open up.
All right, so right off, why are they doing this segment in a free candy van? Like, did you see Ross's smile? Ross was like so happy to be there. He looks so subdued, like he was ready to get a Charleston chew, and he ended up in this creepy van with Underhill. But I I digress.
The season, Spencer Rattler is going to be able to show what he can do. Those topics have been belabored to death. We're going to circumvent them a little bit here. We're going to run through some season award predictions. Who are the guys that we're expecting to show out this year? Who is your MVP of the upcoming season?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Erik McCoy here. I mean, we saw exactly what he meant to this team last year. Started out 2-0 at the beginning of the year, lost them in the third game of the season, and went on a 7-game losing streak. 4 out of the 5 games that they won last season were with him playing at least 40 snaps on the field. It's clear how important he is, and especially with a young quarterback helping to identify, get things done pre-snap, everything like that. That, to me, is going to put Erik McCoy in position to be the most valuable player on that football field in 2025.
I agree with that assessment. Last year, following McCoy's injury, there was actually a statistic that mentioned, I think it was Vegas, where the team that loses its center to injury, the following game they end up losing it. There's like a high percentage that they lose that game. So McCoy is definitely important to. The center is important in general to teams, obviously, but for this offensive line, for what they can do, it's clear that Erik McCoy is the most important piece to the puzzle.
Pressure percentage with and without Erik McCoy on the field changes by 12%. Like, it is a crazy, crazy number. So no doubt about it. I think he is the easiest pick for MVP. Even if he misses some games, you can make the argument that it just shows how valuable he is. Veering just a little bit off the beaten path pick. I'm going to go Justin Reed here because I think he is important as a culture builder. Tyrann Mathieu left. He comes in. You see just how much of a leader he is on this team. I think they need that kind of veteran presence on the team. Probably got lucky to get him in here because I don't know if he comes here after Derek Carr retires. But I think the main thing that stands out to me is just how much that secondary actually seems to like each other this year. And you see the safeties going to press conferences together. They make their jokes. It's just a completely different vibe. And Cam Jordan actually talked about that on Tron Armstead's podcast. He said a lot of times those guys in that group hate each other. This year they're just all cheetahs, and I think that's a good thing, and that can help them build a backbone to this defense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Justin Reed, but probably for a different reason. So the bones of this defense that Staley is running, specifically if he plays around in that penny front a lot, which I expect him to. That penny front is based on 4-6 principles. Buddy Ryan, you got your nose tackle right over the center. He's supposed to whip whoever ass is in front of him, but you put your most disruptive player over the center. And so in that front, that 4-6 front, typically defenses are named after the numbers. That 4-6 front was named after Doug Plank, the strong safety at the time. That makes that position very important in that defense and why he stands out. The other person, Alontae Taylor, that slot, that nickel in that position is incredibly important. I don't know if he'll have the type of year I'm expecting of him, but they're going to be 2 important pieces to that puzzle. Random name I'll throw out. You wonder if one of our wide receivers can be the more explosive player on offense, the MVP, Rashid Shaheed.
Moving on to the offensive player of the year. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara here. I mean, he's going to have a big-time responsibility in this one. You got a young quarterback. You want to establish the run game, and you want to give that quarterback an outlet in the passing game as well, both of which are places where Alvin Kamara really, really excels. And now he's finally got a little bit of a complement in that running back room, as long as everybody stays healthy there and they're able to kind of utilize him, in ways where he can be most effective. I think that he's I'm going to say this, on pace for his first 1,000-yard rushing season here in 2025.
Who was your second grade teacher?
My second grade teacher was Miss Sullivan.
Well, Miss Sullivan,
Yeah.
let's see a test here. A little bit of math.
Why? He's got the same face that I have. Ross is subdued, and Ross is like, I just want my Charleston chew. And Nick is over here asking creepy questions like, so who's your second grade teacher? Nigga, why? Why?
That might be before times tables, maybe. But
Yeah,
what's your math here? How many carries? How many yards per carry? Like, what are we looking at here to get to 1,000?
Oh boy, I got to put that one. I got to put the thinking cap on that one. So I'm gonna go over 100 carries, but I don't know that he has to hit 200 carries because of the efficiency that they'll be able to utilize him with. So I'll go something like 190 or so carries, and then he's able to get just below that 10-yard per carry clip. Obviously, you don't want to be there, but I think he's got the opportunity to bust out some big runs all throughout the season. Maybe I need to go 200 and then go short of 300. Might need to be the way I need to do that.
That would be 5.2 yards per carry.
5.2 yards. Yeah, that might be his career high. So maybe just a little north of 200 carries, but then be able to utilize him more efficiently. That's what he said he wanted to be utilized as, more with greater efficiency, maybe keep some of the hits off of him and allow him to be able to go out there and make an impact when that impact is available.
I'm definitely not the Eric McCoy MVP here because I just screwed you and put you in a bad spot. You get lost.
Hey, look, I'm
on the defensive line.
Sports not mad.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on Alvin. I don't know that there's another great pick for that spot. If it's not him, it's not McCoy. It's one of the two. Like, it has to be. I'd like to go Chris Olave here, but I just feel like I'm a little bit worried about maybe games missed.
Yeah, right.
But I think he's a great candidate for that spot too. Give me your defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Chase Young here, and this is something
I'm gonna throw in Rashid Shaheed again. Because if you're scared that Olave is going to miss games, then it shows you how fragile his spot is week to week. Now, I hope he's gotten stronger, but just a random thought. The Saints have added at least 3 or 4 different speed players this season. Now, the redundancy is important, and yet a lot of these guys are development talent. It almost feels like the Saints are preparing for life without one of those guys next year in Rashid, who is an undrafted free agent or should be a restricted free agent next year, or a free agent right out after his extension. And then Olave, who's on the last year of his deal, looks like a potential trade candidate. Think of it this way. Do you recall way back in 2016 when the Saints drafted Michael Thomas? Thomas had a great year. Brandon Cooks had a great year. They were willing to walk away from Brandon Cooks the following year, got a first rounder for him, which turned into Stephon Anthony, good God. And yet, because they had someone that stepped up in Michael Thomas, they were willing to walk away from the player in Brandon Cooks. There could be a similar scenario happening here.
I've been consistent on, and so I'm trying to stay consistent here. I do have Chase Young in my predictions as getting his first ever double-digit sack season, and the Saints' first double-digit sack season for a single player since 12 and a half by Cam back in 21. And so I think that it's been a while, man. And so them being able to finally get that out of him in this new Brandon Staley defense, he's coming off a year where he logged the most pressures in his career. And then so now if he can transition some of those into sacks in this new defense that plays to his skill set, I think he can finally be a double-digit sack guy, which would put him in DPOY for me.
I'm going to go opposite direction. Listen, Carl Granderson is who is likely to see his first double-digit sack season. When they go into film study, they highlight the way Carl Granderson plays so that Chase Young has someone to look up to. Chase Young has never had more than 5.5 sacks in his career in a season. So we're expecting him to, make pretty much double his statistics. Now, he is in a more comfortable scheme. The scheme that we're running is very similar to the scheme that he ran his rookie year. However, Carl Granderson, I think, is going to get the snaps on the left side which is usually against the easiest, or not, won't say the easiest, uh, but not the best pass blocker. Typically, your best pass blocker is your left tackle. In this 46 style defense, you put your best pass rusher on the strong side. And I see Carl Granderson getting more strong side snaps than I see Chase Young rushing from that side. So I'm going to say that Carl Granderson gets the most sacks out of the edge group this season.
That would be an outstanding outcome. I think that would maybe be the best maybe to hit for this
Yeah.
team overall, because they need to have players at high value positions that are answers. And unfortunately, I don't know that he's gotten all the way there yet, but I'm bullish on the possibility. I think he had a great camp. I think the main thing about Chase Young is he feels like he's carrying himself different. He seems like
Yeah.
happy. Last
Real.
year, I don't know that he felt happy. And there's a lot of like smiling and laughing going on right now that feels healing after kind of the last couple of years. Might not mean anything, but it feels like it possibly could. I'm going to go with Demario Davis on this one, just the ageless wonder. He's just always going to get his stats. He's going to get his numbers. I like him in this scheme too. I feel like they might get him on some blitzes and some aggressiveness. Really, Brandon Staley might be the thing
Nick with the safe pick, unlike the van.
that I'm most excited to see
great.
overall on the whole entire season. Who's your most improved player prediction?
So for me, I'm going to go with Kool-Aid McKinstry. He had a really strong into the season last year where he was kind of thrust into a larger role as a rookie. He looked outstanding throughout training camp and the preseason. Well, okay, throughout training camp. I know in that preseason game, people are probably like, huh? Because he allowed 3 catches for 64 yards, had some trouble with Cortland Sutton, but that's not indicative of what we saw from him as a pass defender, out there in coverage, getting interceptions, even as a run defender, right? Breaking down and getting some things done there. So I look at him as not just a guy that's going to be in a larger role now as kind of that number one cornerback, but a guy that's ready to live up to that standard.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid here. I've seen some things from Kool-Aid McKinstry's play that it's not the coverage aspect. I sour on him when I see his tentativeness to make tackles or get to the pile. Like, some guys are like itching to get in there and throw a shoulder, make a play. Jonas Sanker is someone, block destruction. I get that he's a corner, but he plays really, really tentative to the ball. You saw in that last preseason game, he pretty much got stiff armed out the screen. They shrugged off his tackle attempt. It's just a little bit lackadaisical to me from him in that aspect of the game. And having, studied this game for a long time, I recall the Patriots typically like to draft corners that had high tackle numbers because it just showed their willingness to make plays on the ball, not only in coverage, but in the run game. And this defense, it's important for the corners to be able to step up and make the run. Now, he's playing on the weak side, so they should put him in fewer opportunities, but I'm not seeing it. In fact, I can argue that Rezjon Wright might get a spot or might get some plays there depending on how McKinstry's season goes. Rezjon Wright looked great in the preseason, a little more quiet in practice, the reverse from what we saw from McKinstry.
And I like everything setting up for him right now. He played in the scheme in college. He looked really good in college in the scheme. He feels confident. He's put a lot of stuff together. He's probably not going to be Marshawn Lattimore. Like, there's going to be games where he gives up 4 catches for 84 yards or whatever. But if he's a solid number 2 cornerback, start to finish all season, that's a huge win in the second round. If he's a borderline 1-2, even bigger win. I love the pick. I love the camp he had. If we were doing this like after the second week of camp, I might have snuck him into the DPOY prediction.
Really?
But we've seen like a little bit of like come back to earth, but he's looked really good overall. My most improved player pick, Kendrick Miller. Just it feels like things are setting up for him. Coaching staff's going to get him on the field. He's going to run the ball. Every time he touched the ball, you knew it was number 5. There was no who's that. Like, he just looks different than everybody else. A couple times he lined up wrong. A couple times he had to get sent on a lap. A couple times in preseason where I felt his pass pro wasn't perfect. I think it's still a process for him, but things are building in the right direction. Who's your sleeper breakout pick?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to go with Juwan Johnson here, tight end. You talk about a guy that's a big ticket guy now. 3-year, $30+ million contract to come back. Got on the phone with Kellen Moore late one night and said, "Why do you want me here?" And it has felt like he's gotten his opportunities that he was promised throughout that phone call. I think between the change in the system and him finally being able to get to a point to where he can be more of an impact early on in the season. You look through his last couple of years, weeks 1 through 9, like 30 something catches, 300 or so yards. But weeks 10 through 18, you've seen him really bolster 50 plus catches, 597 receiving yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. So if he's able to get to that early, and it seems like the system and really just the room around him is going to give him that opportunity, I think he's an easy most improved for me.
Now, watch this. I've been consistent in watching Juwan's career. I've been his biggest advocate. In each of those years when Juwan has kind of exploded on the back end of the year, it's become or it's happened when the person who is expected to fill that role got injured. During the first couple of years when Michael Thomas got injured, his role as that possession receiver in the offense expanded following the injury, and then he showed up. And yet, we've been seeing multiple camps from Juwan Johnson where he's not dominating camps. You bring in Vele, who has somewhat of a similar body type, probably the same style of play, and I can see Vele very quickly eating into his snaps. Now, it's possible that they only get Vele going later in the season as the season progresses. So it's possible that it's the reverse for Juwan in this case, where he starts off fast but then ends up slow. But I don't see him having that break. We've been waiting for this breakout for years now. With the competition added for that role, and then when you get other guys back, I don't see him having that breakout, but I do see him being a good piece, a good role player in the offense.
Me.
Yeah, that's a good pick on him too. And like you mentioned, when he got in there with Rattler, both those tight ends, they suddenly like catapulted to the top of the league in yards per reception. I think both of them finished the season in the top 10, and
Yep.
there wasn't a lot of Derek Carr targets in that area of the field. It's going to be interesting to see if that was because all the receivers were gone and that was the only reliable place to go, or if that's how Spencer Rattler just really likes to attack the field. Who is your most likely to succeed pick?
Yeah, I think that's where I actually had Juwan Johnson.
Yeah.
Sorry, Juwan is my most likely to succeed
All right.
because of what we
I'll follow up on that. My sleeper guy, I had Bailey on there. I don't know. Like I feel like everybody's looking at him, but in a way,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a good pick or not. But most likely to succeed, I got Alontae Taylor, and I
Yeah.
feel like this defense is built for him. I think
Yeah.
Brandon Staley's scheme is just perfectly suited to put him in
Yep.
positions to attack, to blitz, to cover, to play from the slot, to limit the things that I think he wasn't great at. I think playing the vision-based defense where you're kind of looking forward more than having your back to the ball is going to suit him so well. I think it'll help keep him out of trouble.
Yeah.
It'll allow him to tackle better and more under control. I think he plays this week. It kind of feels like he's trending that direction.
Yeah.
I think it's hugely important. They're going against like the matchup with the tight end.
Yep.
I think you want Alontae Taylor on Trey McBride at times, at least third downs. I think hugely important, but I feel like this defense is built for him to succeed.
Yeah.
Big question going into this week. How can the Saints help Spencer Rattler succeed against a very good and confusing defense?
Yeah, this goes all the way back to offensive player of the year for me, and it's all about Alvin Kamara, but also the run game as a whole, right? You mentioned Kendre Miller. I talked about Alvin Kamara. Like those two guys are going to have to be a big fixture within this team to A, control the clock, to B, keep that Arizona defense from being able to get too creative, right? If you can make them respect the run game, you're able to kind of predict a little bit of what they're doing and then utilize that RPO, utilize the play action, all those things that they like that they can do with Spencer Rattler. And that will help settle him down as well to the point where you can get him in a rhythm, quick passes, use those outlets out of the backfield, use that tight end that's super close to the line of scrimmage and be able to kind of create a little bit of a rhythm for him. I think those two things for me are going to be huge.
Believe it or not, and it goes back to preseason for me, we didn't see them run a lot of screen plays. Now, Nick pointed out that this defense is very Fangio in some way. The play caller has his origins in Fangio's defense. And so there's a bit of a mirage with the run game. I understand that we definitely need to run the ball, but what have we learned about Staley's defense or what we've read about it? They beg you to run the ball versus their light boxes. It's almost like a trap. It asks you, it's like, hey, we're giving you 7 defenders, 6 defenders, 5 defenders in the box. We're begging you to run the ball. Right. And so for me, I think because there's a lot of stunts that go on in this scheme, a lot of movement on the line, uh, I think the screen game could potentially be something that they look to utilize. Hell, Alvin Kamara is very good in the screen game, and yet the last 2.5 years we've seen very little of it. Not only that, I think you'll see more extensions of the running game with the short passes, things that are out, the tunnel screens, stuff like that. I don't expect Kellen Moore to just try to run it down everyone's throat during this game. Just my thought on it.
In terms of making sure that gets done.
Yeah, those option runs, I think, could be a huge thing this week because you look at the way Arizona plays. They like to play with this 3 safety look, and it's a crazy looking defense. You got the front 5, and then you got 3 guys just standing in a straight line behind it, and like they hold that look forever. And I think getting the run game going is very, very important. But I'd like to see some play action off of it. But if you have a believable option game going, you can get that effect without having to turn your back. I think the thing that scares me for Spencer is you're reading this defense, you turn your back and you got to read it again. And it feels like he'd be set up for a way to throw a pick. So yeah, try to do that. I think get him on some of these nakeds, the bootlegs, change the launch points, just do a lot of stuff to cut down the field so he's not having to read the whole thing, maybe take away some of their ability to jump routes and confuse you. I think this is a very, very first week tough test for him.
Oh, for sure. I wonder if they keep him under center a little bit more for this too. That way, even with that having to look down to catch the football in the shotgun, there's opportunity for that defense to change. So I wonder if you're able to help him out by keeping him under center so he can keep his eyes up.
Yeah, it's a good point. What is your biggest key to victory this week?
Yeah, for me, this one is all about limiting the explosive plays when it comes to the run game of Arizona. Arizona was number 5 in the NFL last year. I know we're talking about last year, but it's the best that we got right now. But they were number 5 last year in 20-plus yard runs. And the New Orleans Saints were 31st in the NFL when it came to giving up rushing yards. And so guys like Devon Godshaw, who was going to be my sleeper for this one too, is a guy that can help to maybe bolster that run defense a bit. They're certainly hoping that he's going to be able to do that. And of course, Justin Reed, seeing pre-snap and making adjustments that way. Your guy, Demario Davis, like all of those players have a major, major task ahead of them of limiting these explosive run plays.
I'm going to build on that. It's keeping Kyler Murray contained too. And it's so fascinating because during the time that Staley was there, just isolating to that tenure, the Saints allowed 5 yards per carry to quarterbacks, which was one of the worst marks in the league. There's a couple. The Giants are at 5.1. There's a couple teams that are ahead of them. Green Bay was at 5.7, Detroit 5.2, and then it's the Saints. The Chargers, 4.1, lowest, one of the lower marks in the league. It's a big difference. Carolina was actually leading the league at 2.7.
Yeah, I agree here. The damage. So because they play so much zone, and it's not less about the contain. It's more about the pass rush has to get home, and it has to get home fast and early. And the reason I say that is because the more zone you play, the longer the quarterback has to move around, the bigger the holes in the zone get. That van needs some windows, man. That van needs some windows. Anyway, the bigger the holes in the zone get. And so if Tyler is able to move around, even if he doesn't escape the pocket, if he's shrugging off tackles, if we're missing sacks, if we're sliding off of guys, and he's got an opportunity to make a play and get the ball out, it's going to be hell. We've got to get our hands on him early. We've got to hit him early. The earlier the success, the worse he'll play as the game goes on. He's a quarterback that could be rattled. So pass rush has got to get home to protect those guys on the back end.
Which is insane. But the Chargers were really good at it, and I think the scheme just lends to it, and it makes sense because DA's defense, it's a lot of back to the ball, press man, and a lot of Staley stuff you're looking. So even when the quarterback's getting out, somebody can crash down and get it. I just don't, you don't want to get gutted that way. Like if you can contain that, I think it helps a lot. And it would be such a welcome change to watch the Saints be able to stop a quarterback and not get gutted by one every single time they play someone that can move a little bit. Last thing, we ran a poll. Saints fans, I cannot believe this number. 82%. I saw Jono Barnes run one, and it was like 50-50. So I like a completely different subsect of fans over here. 82% agree with the decision to start Spencer Rattler. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree that this was the right choice. You go, and this is what this team has done for the most part. They've leaned on where there's experience when there's a battle. You look at Isaac Yadam at the cornerback spot, never really relinquished that. And then there's a few other examples out there too. Julian Blackmon, who walked in and took the starting safety role, right? And so they've leaned on experience. He's the guy that comes in with a little bit of NFL experience and honestly just looked more consistent all throughout training camp. No shade at all when it comes to Tyler Shuck. There's a lot that he's going to be able to do once he's continued his development, but this felt like the right choice. And I think the 80+% there of the fan base kind of shows you that.
One word answer. What week do we see Shuck?
12.
All right.
No weeks. Unless there's an injury. No weeks. Let him sit. Or if we can win a division and we like secure a victory, let him start like the last game or something. Seriously. There's no real reason to rush him. It's a 2-year project. You like both he and Rattler. You want to see him develop. I've always consistently said I'm more excited about Tyler Shuck's second year leap than I am with anything he can do this year. I just don't expect much from him this year. I wouldn't expect much from any second round quarterback. Just go and look at a hit rate of second round quarterbacks. It's not very high at all. So if you can take one and there's an opportunity to develop him, I think you're as patient as you can possibly be. Now, if Rattler is horrible, then yeah, you may have to pull him. But as long as Rattler isn't terrible, I think you let him play the season.
He's Ross Jackson. We're going to hit a break. We'll be right back.